Thank you all for your attendance. We're going for quality as opposed to quantity. Just by way of introduction, my name is Graham Thompson. I'm one of the federal execs at Uncork. I have specific concentrations around homeland security and law enforcement. I think this is a really important time for Uncork from that federal practices perspective. We've been around for about a year and a half. Personally, I've been here about 5 months, but the net is that we are, I think, third in queue with the GSA PMO for FedRAMP authorization. So what that means, without being naive, is that everything has been done. There's nothing that can stop us other than just paperwork in the government, which that's just a function of time. So with that being said, myself, I've been involved in sales with the federal government for about 20 years. I've specialized in the last 7 or 8 in bringing emerging technology or disruptive technology to the federal government. My background includes MemSQL, now single store, Snowflake as well. And I truly believe that this is the next Snowflake has been, of course, but I truly believe this is the maybe even more disruptive in the marketplace, especially the federal. So introduction.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself. My name is Kim Thompson. I am the VP of our public sector sales vertical, although we are very firmly focused on some specific state and local and federal agencies. I am based in Washington, D.C., and I've actually had a lot of experience, most of my career selling or working with the federal government. I'd like to tell people I'm 28 years old, right? I started in this industry when I was 6 years old, right? Okay. But yeah, sold Oracle and Microsoft and Salesforce and really did some due diligence in saying, what is the next technology that I think really can help agencies? And I thought Uncork was that platform. So I'm really very, very excited to be here with you guys today. Ross?
Yeah, so I'm Ross Ball. I'm lead DevOps at the Workforce Group. We're a disaster recovery company. We do a lot of post-disaster assistance, grant management programs, and lots of other things. I won't bore you with all the details, but I got started as a full stack developer, and now I'm at the point in my career where I want to only spend time writing code as a hobby, and Uncork is helping me do that.
So we're getting a lot of interest. So this is unusual. Within the federal government, we're getting calls into Uncork from the Department of State. They've very publicly said they're getting involved with us, as an example, DHS and the like. We're still in this kind of bucket of low code, no code, and I don't think a lot of the federal government understands the difference. Ross, from your perspective or your experience, what is the big differences technically from supporting the mission and actually executing on something rather than just marketing fluff?
Well, when I got hired on at the Workforce Group, my whole responsibility was to bridge the gap and basically make up for the shortcomings of the low-code software that we relied on. When you're operating on the scale of recovering from a hurricane for an entire state and, dispersing $70 million to people that have lost their homes and livelihoods, you very quickly come up against the limitations of those low-code softwares when you're trying to integrate all these different systems of records and different pieces of software where you're, collecting form data for 100 different processes, right? And you need pretty advanced logic that goes up along with that. And when you're using software that is just glorified Excel spreadsheets for the most part, I'm just going to talk. You guys can hear me, right? Yeah. When you're using software that's... Oh, do I need it for them? Okay, all right. So yeah, when you're using software that's basically glorified Excel spreadsheets, you're going to be frustrated and disappointed from a developer standpoint a lot of the time, because your answer to people who request things from you is going to be no all the time. And that's frustrating to have to say no, because it makes you feel like you can't meet the requirements then they have to go tell someone no, and then they have to go tell someone no. And it's nice when you're using the software that Uncork provides, where it's actually no code, where you can bake in very advanced logic, pretty much as advanced as you need it to be. And you can start telling people yes to just about everything. The only times you say no is when you don't want to do it, which is nice. So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. Actually, we are in a very intimate setting, and I know that we have a microphone that we can potentially float around, and I'd actually like to include you guys in this conversation about digital transformation. Of course, we think Uncork is the next best thing since sliced bread, and we want to evangelize, but I'd really like to hear from some of you guys in terms of, you guys are the trusted advisors, right, for your customers, for these agencies and these entities. What are they looking for? How are you counseling them when they're thinking about digital transformation? Anybody want to tackle that?
Can I ask real quick, who in here actually develops on the platform? Just Johnny? Anybody else? Who's here because they want to know why you should develop on the platform? Okay. All right, great. I can speak to that.
I'm here trying to understand.
You want to? We have a mic that we.
So I'm here more to understand the narratives you all use to convince people to leverage the platform. I'm in a space where safety, soundness, and risk, I don't know if you guys are the highest priorities, and new technologies, things that people may not fully understand, all those things. Alarm bells go off on safety, soundness, and risk when you try to introduce tools like this. So I'm just trying to understand, because I'm on the business side, trying to drive innovations and solutions for my clients. What narratives have you guys used to get people to understand the value, the importance, to shift from how things have been done in the past to where the world's going, and getting people to realize that it's not like the safety, soundness, and risk doesn't change based on the tool you use. It's about the outcome. So I'm just trying to more understand that. Because of the space I'm in.
I think we have some partners here who've maybe helped with this conversation with customers, right? Let's put him on the spot. Let's actually have him introduce himself and talk a little bit about how they, what's the narrative that you guys discussed with your clients and had them have this transformational shift?
Sure. Harvey, I'm a partner at KPMG, and I lead the KPMG Uncork Alliance. A little bit in terms of like the conversations we are having with client are more around the fact that when you develop technology or legacy technology, you're writing a lot of code, and when you're writing code, you have to maintain the code, right? And the code deprecates every few years, and you have to do version upgrades every few years, and it's been a known issue in the industry, and our clients are spending millions and millions of dollars, not to say a lot of tech debt and things that are just staying in the IT queue because they just don't have enough engineers, right? So I think that's where Uncork's winning in the marketplace, because we can develop applications very, very quickly through the platform, and we've been able to do it very successfully at a number of our clients. And not just that, we've been able to train our clients and their professionals through the development cycle, so they know how to kind of maintain the applications and enhance the applications once we are done with it. So kind of that's been our value proposition to our clients, that it's not only that we come and build the software for you, but we also help you to maintain the software going forward in a more DIY capacity.
Excellent, thank you. And so I would say, as we're looking to talk with, listen, we don't consider ourselves salespeople. We consider ourselves friends, trusted advisors, right? Because, for us in particular, living in the DC area, it's a very small community around, in particularly the federal government. So we don't want to present ourselves as a fly by night. We're just going to sell you whatever we can, and then we're going to skulk off in the night. We really actually do believe in the mission of the federal government and of the state and local agencies to really service their constituents, right? And so I've actually, as I mentioned, I was at Salesforce for quite a while. I actually think Salesforce is a very good platform. I think their core competency of CRM, they do better than anybody else, right? We don't want to try to suggest that that's something that we can can do. But we've been seeing that agencies are really struggling. You know, they're implementing a Salesforce as an example, and you have folks who are doing a little bit of a declarative configuration, and then you have others that are actually writing code, right? So you get this hybrid sort of Frankenstein that is actually a lot harder to maintain than full custom stack, development. And so they're not recognizing that problem, and then they have this legacy code that they're having to maintain, and it becomes very difficult. And another thing we're seeing is really value and cost. A lot of I don't call them competitors, I call them our friends. We've all got different mousetrap, but their pricing model, that legacy pricing model of per user, per year, where we're going to charge you whether you're on the platform once a year or 10,000 times a year. We don't particularly care. That's becoming cost prohibitive for a lot of agencies. And so even if they're successful, they're recognizing, oh my goodness, in the option and out years of our contracts, we can't afford these platforms. And so Uncork solves, I think, a very specific problem that our agencies are facing. We are not suggesting rip and replace. We think that we're additive to actually the ecosystem to allow you to actually, address some of those administrative applications as well as mission critical applications. We think we can be additive, and we think that we're a much better value. And I think that the agencies are really listening and perking up at that conversation.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we're having very interesting conversations with procurement folks because they do the numbers. And the irony is that if Harvey and his guys are successful in building apps that the government uses, then they know that the subscription licensing costs in outlying years, never mind the O&M of these applications, is punitive. And they know that they do not have the budget to do it. So we're trying to take a position, or we are taking a position, where it's a consumption-based model. You get the platform, you build apps on the platform, you are charged by submissions. So as people consume that application or workflow, then it costs them money. But when they're not, it doesn't. And another key point to that is that on the Uncork platform, they don't care how many applications you build, right? So there are a lot of really, really good financial incentives to get another platform, not rip and replace the other things, but that alternative to these very expensive, monolithic, I might say, platforms of low code. And then the other point Harvey mentions is technical debt. And Ross, I'd love to know, relative to that, which is sometimes overlooked, how has the world of no code helped you there?
Yeah, so technical debt, it's definitely an issue. I want to speak to one of the things that I think helps the most for us, and that is it's not just developer onboarding, because you guys do that well. You have an academy and things like that. But
thank you.
But there are there's a few programming languages out there, and when you're looking at a talent pool, you can't really just narrow that down to the one that you use at your. I mean, if we were to just say, okay, we use a Python backend and a Angular or React front end or whatever, you're narrowing down your talent pool. And when you have something like Uncork, you can basically just say, all right, our talent pool that we're sourcing from is just going to be basically anybody that can program at all, anybody that has any type of developer skills, or anybody that is just good with logic. I mean, anybody can really develop on Uncork, even if they're not a developer. If they just have a basis of program logic. If you're a program manager and you decided you wanted to go into development, you could learn how to do it. You can learn the basics and then go straight into the academy and start building an application. You don't actually have to be a traditional developer who writes code. It's pretty phenomenal. So that alone eliminates the technical debt of, okay, we're using Angular 1 at our company because we haven't updated. So anybody who just started getting into JavaScript, they're already out because they then, it doesn't matter because they've been writing the newest Angular version. So they we need someone who has been in the industry so long that not only are they using outdated libraries, but they're themselves are probably outdated in what modern JavaScript development. So anyway, that I think is one of the biggest advantages in terms of technical debt. I mean, the others are, I feel like, more obvious, which are, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone else is hearing it out there, but certainly the government folks I talk to are are enamored by citizen development. And that you kind of touch on what that really means. That citizen development, with no disrespect to me, doesn't mean I can do anything, right? But certainly from your perspective, is that a real thing now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say that, I mean, I'm just repeating myself essentially, but yes, I mean, you don't have to go through 4 years of college to, in a specific programming language or on a specific, any type of, development methodology to be dangerous pretty quickly on Quark, so.
And I think actually this is interesting you say this because the talent pool, right, is certainly shrinking. And I know from the federal perspective, and probably you guys are recognizing this, we still have a lot of developers out there doing COBOL, right, C++, Java. These are sort of, these dinosaurs in terms of programming languages. They're still pervasive because there's a lot of these legacy systems that are actually still using that. And the federal government, I think, is really recognizing they have a real problem. They have a talent problem. They're not going to be able to attract anybody that wants to write in COBOL, right? And so as you're looking for this next generation and this talent pool, Uncork is really a great alternative in terms of, hey, we can actually get a talent pool enabled, understanding fairly quickly on this platform, and they can then start to be impactful for us. So I do think that it's very relevant for, again, and very specifically state and local and federal agencies as they're looking to enhance their workforce and compete, right, with some of these private organizations as well.
So we didn't prepare Ross with this question, but I need to ask it. What are the challenges with Uncork?
I think the first challenge that a lot of people, if you're coming from a traditional developer background, you're going to struggle probably right off the bat with not having a relational database, right? You guys use MongoDB. But in terms of the limitations of the platform right now, there's very few. The only ones that we really have run into so far is just not having the ability to deploy a true mobile app, right? That could be coming. I mean, we have Capacitor. I'm sure you guys have something. I don't know how far out it's
Hopefully
planned.
find out in the next few days.
Oh, okay, great. And on top of that, that would be hardware integrations that come along with mobile, being able to, you have license scanners and things like that, but if we want to do RFID and things like that we have shoehorned into other projects, those are the only things that are keeping very specific niche processes of ours from switching over. Otherwise, it's kind of, we're at the point where we're struggling to figure out what the next thing we want to port over is because there are just so many options because everything could work better.
So we can use on both points. On the first one, we got the feedback from a number of clients. So tomorrow we're going to announce how you can use on Quark in a relational database structure.
Excellent.
So we are going to do it tomorrow, but it's exactly that. And integrate with relational databases across the infrastructure and literally bring that experience on top of MongoDB. It's going to be super powerful
Okay.
And it's already in advanced R&D, and it's going to be done in the next few weeks.
See, this is what happens. Our senior leadership ask, and they say,
Yeah,
you shall
the launch
receive.
client for us is going to be Goldman Sachs, but we're launching that by year end, which is big. The mobile one, it's a good point. We have a plan, not as a pure native app, but we have a plan to use a partner to wrap basically these applications. We're going to announce that in Q1, Q2.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic. So I know we only have a few minutes left, and listen, I fully expect that as we are create next year, this room will be overflowing because we are seeing a lot of interest in our platform. And it's interesting that we see some of you all who are integrators, you doing the implementations, you're recognizing that Uncork could be a differentiator for you all in your practice. And so I think that you guys are on the bandwagon early and are really going to have a leg up as folks are starting to catch up over the next 12 months or so. You know, we're really very excited. And listen, Graham has worked for some very good emerging technology companies. So the fact that I was able to snag him and bring him over here, you know, says something, you know, really, really loudly that, you know, Uncork really is a platform that's going to make waves. We've seen the other low-code platforms. Again, I don't call them competitors, but I do think that there are a lot of challenges with those platforms. And we are so excited to take the momentum of our FedRAMP announcement that should be coming any week now and really help us really accelerate as we're trying to help federal agencies particularly.
I think we're down to a couple of minutes. Does anyone in the audience have a question for? Thank you.
You're gonna be
Has the speed improved?
So at first it slowed way down because we had to learn.
Yeah, beyond that.
But then after that, we have found one of the greatest things about it is their snippets system, right? You can take a process and you can make the smallest, let's say you have a form field that you want to hide when you click a button, right? And let's say you use that all over the place. You can turn that into a snippet and bring it into any project. It takes 5 seconds, right? But you can do that with a massive process too, across multiple different modules. And the more that we work on it, the more we find ways to do that has cut down just for Johnny and I, we've been working on dashboards for this project, and the dashboard changes with each role, right? And every single time we work on this dashboard, we find more ways, more shortcuts, more processes that can essentially just take the work away from us. And it has sped up our development. I mean, tenfold would be, I mean, it's an arbitrary number, but it is pretty insane. Yeah, it is sped up. Not only the development, but the deployment and yeah.
And you care to make any comments on adoption from your user community?
Well, adoption from the actual end users?
And actual end users, and any perspectives that you could share from there?
Yeah, typically it's not that we are having to convince them of Uncork. It's that we're convincing them that we can do what they need for a cost that they are willing to, pay. And in the past, we've had to say, well, yes, okay, we can do that, but then we'll have to do this, and you'll have to do this. And now we can just say, yes, we can do that. Okay. And this is what it's going to look like. This is how the process is going to go. So it went from a yes, but to a yes, and. Cool. And I think that works a lot better for us. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thank you all very much for your time today. We appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the rest of Create 2022.
Thank you.
Ross, thank you very much.